I think I might actually be in love with this game. The building in this is awesome, and I actually had such a fun time with this project, so I really hope you guys like it as much as I do. I definitely see myself doing a lot of Hytale content, so better make sure you're strapped in and ready for quite a few weeks, because I'm gonna keep up with this as much as I can. For this build, I get the lovely opportunity to start a brand new creative world, and there is nothing that feels quite as good as just seeing a completely blank canvas. You get to see the terrain, take everything in for inspiration, and it's like, it's really an epic feeling. Alright, so I've gone ahead and found a nice little spot for us to start. I'm gonna start clearing this out, getting the trees out of the way, just so we have a nice view to actually, like, take a step back and look at it, because that's always a very useful thing when building, to be able to actually, like, place things down, take a step back, see what it's gonna look like from far away. Thank you, excuse me, sorry. But yeah, just clearing out blocks, clearing out, trees and stuff, so I can actually start working on a project here. One of the best things to do, or at least I really enjoy, is actually getting to lay down a foundation for the build. This is like not only just something that really makes the build feel concrete into the environment, it makes it feel like, you know, it's there. It's not like it's like, you know, when you do Photoshop and you put something in, then you like don't add shadows and it's like very clearly photoshopped. Like, that's what just building something on unedited terrain kind of feels like to me. So this is like a really fun part, because it means that anything you do from here on out is like super ingrained into the world, and it's just, I really like this. But it also means that I get to take a lot of inspiration from this, because I pretty much give myself a blank canvas that I can start laying out, almost kind of like 3D modeling in a way. And it's like something that you can't really do as easily when like you're trying to build around terrain, and like if you try to do this later, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But like, this is one of my favorite parts, and this was also really fun to actually get to do this again in a completely different game, because usually this is like Terraria or Minecraft or something. Alright, I got a little bit carried away placing these grass blocks, because I found that these full grass blocks are really neat. You can see like a lot that you could do with these, especially like this little technique I've been trying, which is like half grass below full grass. I think it looks really good. This is something I've actually tried doing in Minecraft, but you couldn't do it because, you know, the full grass always just turned into dirt blocks. So very pleasantly surprised to see that this is not the case, and I could do this cute little trick here where it's just like thicker grass. Right, so first I wanted to start with a couple of shapes, and that's usually how I like to start my builds. It gives me an idea for not only like how I want the build to look, but it makes sure that the build is going to be dynamic in the end, because if you just have like a rectangle, it's very hard to make that shape dynamic without adding a lot of extra details later on, which is totally okay to do. But for me, when you have different shapes together, you can kind of make something that looks good without detail. It's kind of like, you know, sometimes when you do art, you want to start with silhouettes just so you know that like what you're doing is going to look good, you know, no matter what, even if the details are kind of lacking. And yeah, I want to give like a total heads up here. I did not plan any of this out. I really didn't. I just kind of went in here and thought, you know, I would just let my imagination run wild. I would build something and just kind of go along, like make up what I want to do along the way, and it ended up working out really well for me. Eventually here, once I got a bit of a tower set in, I wanted to try creating more shape with the copy paste tool, because there's built-in world edit, and it's like it'd be a shame to not to use that or learn how to use it. Unfortunately though, I ran into an issue of not knowing how to rotate it, because you know, I wanted to add more shape, and instead I just pasted it on top of what I was doing and decided I was still gonna work with it, but I was gonna go for a different approach to like what I originally had in mind. So the unintended extra tall tower gave me a really good idea for kind of like a ruin structure with a tree going through it. And I was going through the tree. The shape kind of made me think of like almost like a bonsai, but at the same time like a cherry blossom. And I thought it'd be really cool to try to kind of make a cherry blossom here, because cherry blossoms, they stand out so much. I feel like it would make sense that it would be rooted in this tree or in this tower. If you know what I mean? I think you know what I mean. But anyway, that's the vision I had in mind as I was doing all of this. Just so you know, like when I make my block placement decisions, that's ultimately the reason behind it. So now I'm really just trying to add shape to the build. This is my second build I've done in Hytale, so I'm still learning a lot of the blocks, and this is my opportunity to just kind of experiment a bit, learn how to give the shape more, the build more of a dynamic shape. I was trying to add detail without making the build look too noisy, because I'm really trying to remember, you know, negative space, solid space. If there's too much noise, the eye doesn't have anything to focus on, which just kind of makes the whole thing look like vomit, and it's not fun to look at. So like, it can look really good, but if the entire thing looks really good and there's no place for your eye to like kind of be directed to or to rest, it's just like, it's not pleasant to look at. And that's something that's really difficult to do with a sandbox game, because there's no fixed angle that you're going to be looking at this. But it's kind of a disadvantage as well as an advantage, because then you can step away and actually just find an angle that works. But having a specific angle in mind, building it from there, and really trying to keep in like negative space and stuff helps a lot. So that's just kind of what I was really trying to keep in mind as I added these details here, because I was taking away and planning just to make sure that when you looked at this, it looked soothing to the eyes, ultimately. Now that I was mostly happy with the tower, which was probably the hardest part because it got really messy really quickly, and that's a really hard thing to do with ruins, I was able to actually move on to the part I was most excited for, and it was actually building this cherry blossom. There's some really cool building blocks for trees in this game, and the leaves are really bushy, so it's like, you can't really go wrong. So I just haphazardly threw a bunch of branches at the top. There wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it, because that's kind of how trees work. Most trees, the branches and everything will grow towards the sun. It kind of depends on the species of tree, but that's really what I was trying to keep in mind, how this tree would grow up towards the sun, and then I was going to plan like how the leaves and stuff are going to go around it in the meantime. I went ahead and first wanted to try with color, but I realized that I probably should have waited to try and do this, because I didn't know what to expect, and it's like kind of making an educated guess. It would have been nicer to have experience in it first. So looking back, I probably would have tried shading with different colored leaves later, like after I was done building the tree, but you know, hindsight 2020. Regardless, I started with some like purples, going to reds, then it was going to go to pink, and then it was going to go to white. And despite the fact that I had some trouble with it because I did not set myself up for success, I'm really, really happy with the end result. I think it came out really, really good. Towards the end of the tree placement and the pink leaves and stuff, it wasn't exactly looking how like I liked it to look, but once I started adding these white leaves, it looked phenomenal. I was really, really happy with it. And I'm like really excited to do more projects with trees and leaves and stuff. That pretty much takes care of the tree though, and that actually also pretty much takes care of the build. The only thing that was really left was adding some foliage around the like tower and everything, which I was pretty excited for. It's something like this always ties the entire project together. It feels really good, and it feels really rewarding, and you get to just like sit back and fully soak in that like feeling of completion, which is always really nice. I got to experiment with some of the new like different features in Hytale, with some of the planting, the flowers, the planter boxes. Like, it's little quality of life details that makes it feel like this build exists in the world. And again, it's not just an art piece, which is a totally different kind of skill to try to manage. There's a lot to learn there, but I think regardless what you're trying to do, it turns out to be fun either way. That being said, though, I finished this up and I really liked how it looked, and then decided it wasn't really anything special. It's just a tower with a tree in it that's been done. I was like, you know, how can I add more color to this, also add more interest to this, and also possibly add more of like a story to this? So blue was the first thing that came to mind. I had already started with the aquamarine gravel to like lay up the foundation, and saw the aquamarine roofing, and I was like, you know, what if we kind of make it look like, I don't know, like some kind of royalty was here first, and then, I don't know, they had a baby. There's not a real, like, big story behind it, but it still came together really, really well in the end, in my opinion. And this actually gave me an opportunity to do more stonework and actually learn how to really add some shape in this game. And although it was difficult at first because there's less of a variety of like tools and blocks to work with, the amount of shape that you can get with very little effort is wicked. I am so excited to do more projects with this game, with Hytale, because I think I'm gonna be doing some really cool stuff that I am like super ooper duper excited for. Going on to the last little facility here, I decided, you know, I already knew I wasn't gonna really do an interior, but it was always kind of up in the air, and I was just like, you know, no. No way am I doing an interior. And since I was able to like let that go, it meant that the second tower I could really make look really nice without worrying about having to like be able to go inside of it. And you can see, like, at first it's just this big rectangle that looks kind of weird, but after I got to experiment for a little bit, I'm really like, that's probably my favorite part of the build. So like, just a reminder, sometimes you really just gotta trust the process, because things will look weird, but once you're done, like, that's what matters. Don't get discouraged while you're building. Like, get discouraged after. No, like, you always gotta remember, even if you don't like what you did when you're done, you learned while you were doing it, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. But yeah, super pleased with the results here. I had a lot of fun with this project, and I think it's time to give you guys a bird's eye view of the whole piece. Thank you all so very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video today. I know I did. I had a really fun time making this. If you think this video deserves a rating, please, I'd really appreciate if you would like and subscribe and help support the channel if you want to. Otherwise, I'll see you all around. Have a great day. Bye!